The Western pro-life movement cares about protecting young mothers and their children from harm. But historically, that's also what the law is designed to do. Will those laws be restored? Yes, they will, and we will show you how on this edition of Life Matters with your host, Brian Johnston. Brian Johnston is the Western Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California ProLife Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Hi, Brian here. I want to let you know this is an interview that we did with John Cox by telephone. So please excuse the audio quality at times. You'll hear it go in and out. It's an important interview, and we give you the opportunity to know what's coming on the horizon and how you can change California. Welcome back to Life Matters Radio. We're your program on life, culture, and the very real battle of ideas. And if you're not paying attention to this battle, then you're going to lose. You know what laws are? Laws are simply ideas that are enforced. That's serious, and that's why we care about politics and policy. I'm very excited today. We have the only pro-life candidate for governor, state of California. That's John Cox. John Cox, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be with you today.
Yeah, I'm very pleased, John. As you know, we were talking before, a very important constituency in California, not recognized in their own party, but very important for elections, and that's California pro-life Democrats. They have endorsed you, John, because of your stand on life. They're tired of their own party. They are tired of the deceit and the lies and the deception, and most importantly on our issue, promoting and paying for the abortion industry with our tax money. We know in California, going back to Ronald Reagan, there's no Republican that can win in California without caring Democrats that cross over and vote for a good, solid Republican. I'm really excited about your race, particularly in the primary, as Democrats can vote for the Republican in this primary.
And let me say something about that, Brian, because I grew up a Democrat, and my history, if people will take the time to look, I'm not what you might call maybe a typical Republican. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My mother was a Chicago school teacher. But more importantly, Brian, my real father walked out on my mom when I was a little baby. Never saw him again. And I'm going to introduce a word, and it's not necessarily a religious word, but it's certainly a moral word that I believe Republicans and Democrats can agree on, and that is responsibility. My real father didn't take responsibility for me. And frankly, a lot of men have not taken responsibility for the children they create. And a lot of women have suffered because of that, because as we know, women bear the responsibility of childbirth, and it's a responsibility they can't avoid.
That's right.
Clearly. And it's my belief in many ways that abortion was created by men to take away that responsibility, to give them a convenient way of abdicating that responsibility. And I would reach out to all Democrats, and obviously to all Republicans as well, but all thinking human beings, and that is that one of the things that I'd like to talk about in this governor's race is all of us taking responsibility to just a little bit greater degree. And you know what, Brian? I will tell you, I'm 62 years old. People can look at my background. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But one of the things I will tell you about my life, Brian, when I look back on it, is that I've tried in every instance to take responsibility. It's not only what I do in the political realm here, but it has to do with my business life. It has to do with my children. I haven't always been a perfect father, but one of the things that I really have taken pride in is the idea that I've been involved and I've taken responsibility for them. And I've also tried to take responsibility for my community. It extends to my religious life, too. I didn't grow up a Catholic, but I embraced the Catholic Church when I got married. And one of the things I did, as soon as I moved to the parish that I was part of, or the community I wanted to be a part of, Brian, I immediately sought to be part of the school board for our parish. And I got involved in the men's club. I got involved as a lector. I taught religious education in my parish. And I didn't do any of this stuff, Brian, because somebody told me I had to or because I actually even felt an obligation. It was enjoyable to take the responsibility that I did in each of these roles. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It was fun. It was fun to participate with other people in taking responsibility. I really hope that one of the things I could communicate as part of this campaign for governor is that it doesn't have to be a burden to be involved in politics or your religion or your community in any respect. It's actually fun to be involved in these activities and to be involved with other people and to feel like you're making a contribution. That's just the way I feel about it.
That's very exciting, John. We're talking to John Cox. You're listening to Life Matters, and John just made a very important point. He is the Republican candidate for governor, the only pro-life candidate for governor of either party. And John, just to emphasize the issue of responsibility, I'll tell you something very much related to that, John, about your dad walking out and the reality of what abortion is. We're seeing that in Hollywood right now. We're seeing that Harvey Weinstein, who now even the Democrats, the leftist Democrats of Hollywood, are turning on Harvey Weinstein for one important reason. He uses women. It's public knowledge he uses them. And abortion uses women. Years ago, John, when I first got involved, we would be outside of abortion clinics, and we would prayerfully wait, and the young woman with me would go and talk to the young lady, and if there was a man with her, I would talk to the man. John, I've been punched more than once by that man who was determined on one thing.
Yeah.
He was there to kill that baby. He was not going to be held accountable and let that baby live and be raised because he'd have to pay the bill. Abortion benefits men. It doesn't help women. And you have nailed it on the head. And the fact is that even Democrats are recognizing that. You know, Harvey Weinstein is the single largest supporter of Planned Parenthood. Harvey Weinstein was at every single Planned Parenthood fundraising events and gave to Hillary and all the pro-abortion candidates the millions. He was a central figure. And now we know why. Why did Bill Clinton support abortion? Bill Clinton has a reputation of using women sexually and hoping that things will get cleaned up. This is, on its face, a cultural war, but you've been lied to, folks. It doesn't help women. It gets men off the hook, and it hurts women.
I will go further, Brian, because my wife has a couple of friends who had abortions early in their lives, and they would be the first to admit that the reason they had those abortions is because the father refused to take responsibility, or they were worried about that father taking responsibility. And today, those women are around the same age as my wife, and they feel an incredible void in their life knowing that they're not now enjoying that child that could have been part of their life. And it's obviously incredibly sad, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we had more leadership that would encourage people, and especially men, to take that kind of responsibility, I think they both would be enriched by it. And I think that's the positive message for us to get out.
John, I'm so excited to talk to you like this. We're talking to John Cox, and something, if you haven't heard what he said, he's taking on this role of running for governor because he feels it as a manly duty to be responsible to your community. It's not a burden, and that is so refreshing. He's not doing it for the sake of power. He's actually, and maybe later when we come back, he'll talk about his desire to diffuse power. That's important. That's an American tradition, to diffuse power and not have a centralized controlling government. But right now, before we go, you need to know that the California ProLife Council PAC has endorsed John Cox for governor of California. And now the California ProLife Democrats have endorsed John Cox for governor, even though he's a Republican. Again, in California, no Republican can get elected without those traditional value Democrats. So we're excited about that. When we come back after this break, John is going to tell us more about the campaign, more about his plans, and perhaps more about what you can do where you're listening, what you can do to change California and to do what he said, man, woman, or child. Being responsible is the most fulfilling aspect of being a human being. That's what fulfills you. And there's a party that says, as a political party, don't be responsible. The government will take care of you. Don't do that. And if you're in trouble, if you get pregnant, we'll arrange to kill your baby. There's a political party that does that. It's called the Democrat Party. And many Democrats are sick and tired of that. They don't believe in that principle. And I'm excited because many of them are going to cross over, and they're going to vote for John Cox for governor. John, we'll be right back. And again, you're listening to Life Matters.
If you have questions or comments for Life Matters, call 800-924-2490. Give us your name and the town you're calling from and a quick question or comment. Life Matters continues after this.
Power.
You're pro-life and you want to defend your position, but you're not sure what to say. That's pretty common. So get the facts you need to back up your pro-life position with the Power of 7 app. The Power of 7 gives you effective pro-life replies to 7 of the most common pro-abortion arguments. It's simple, it's easy to use, and it's free.
Power of 7.
Download it now at thepowerof7.org. The Power of 7, the number 7.org.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on life, on culture, and on the very real and pressing battle of ideas. I'm Brian Johnston, your host, and we have a special guest, John Cox, candidate for governor of California. He's the only pro-life candidate for governor. You may say, oh gosh, California, it's a leftist state, it's a red state, and you've heard it all. But you don't understand. If you look at California's history, it is in fact Democrats that have crossed over to elect Republicans. That's the only way Republicans can get elected in California. And what Democrats are they? Democrats that have some scintilla of values, that haven't sold out to the party, that love the roots that the Democrat Party once had, that cared about the little guy. Those Democrats, they might still be registered Democrats, but they are tired of the Gavin Newsoms and the hardcore leftist kookiness that the Democrat Party has come to embody. We saw that with the victory of Donald Trump. There are many, many blue-collar Democrats that helped elect Donald Trump. I'm excited, John, about your campaign now in June. Tell us more about what you're looking for and looking at as you face this.
Let's talk about one big element of my campaign, Brian, which I think goes to that very issue you were talking about, and that is the diffusion of power and the involvement of the individual. You know, the Republican Party has been criticized, and in some respects rightfully, for being the party of big business and powerful people. And that's not me. And I think as proof of it, people can look at the ballot initiative that I have sponsored called the Neighborhood Legislature. On October 25th of last year, we submitted 800,000 signatures to the registrars of all the counties in California to get this on the ballot. This neighborhood legislature, I won't go into the weeds right now, but people can find out about it by going to neighborhoodlegislature.com. But it's a revolutionary reform because what it does is it gets special interest money out of power. It basically results in the power of our government getting back in the hands of the people. You know, you mentioned our founders, and our founders envisioned a government of the people. What our government has devolved into is a government of the money, of the power centered in people who supply the campaign funding. And that's basically big business and big labor bosses. They're the ones that are really mainly in control of our government. So what I would say is that the neighborhood legislature is kind of a perfection of Madisonian democracy, and that is the legislature, which is really the voice of the people. Under the neighborhood legislature, it will truly become the voice of the people because money is taken out of the picture. Basically, the neighborhood legislature creates tiny, tiny legislative districts, only a few thousand people. And that takes money out of power. In other words, you don't need money to run a campaign when it's only door-to-door campaigning in a few thousand households. You can actually go door-to-door and make a case to your neighbors. And that really is a fundamental change that gets us back to that founder's vision of a government of the people. Now, it's true that in a state the size of California, it would create thousands of districts. So what we did was we created a two-tiered structure that still involves only a small number of people going to Sacramento, but they're accountable to thousands of neighborhood people. And that two-tier structure is key to this whole thing. And I think if people take a look at this and study it, they'll see that this idea is one that can really bring our government back to the people to a large extent.
I think it's very exciting. We're going to spend a little, I think maybe the best example for the average American is to think about New Hampshire. Those of you familiar with New Hampshire, they have many small districts. And it's not by accident that every presidential race actually must begin in New Hampshire, because it's on that individual level. If you ever follow political campaigns, that president has a great challenge in campaigning New Hampshire. They really want to win there, and it really makes them pay attention to people. John is saying, and again, when I'm excited about having John on, I want to talk about his campaign because of what he said at the beginning of this program. He believes that people need to be responsible. He personally wants to be responsible. And when we have that vision coming from the corner office, which is the nickname in Sacramento for the governor's chair, when that comes down from the top, let's encourage responsibility. Let's encourage people to pull themselves up. We'll help them, we'll encourage them, but they've got to take action. And that is the opposite, really, of even what you hear sometimes in the Republican Party. It's clearly the opposite of what Gavin Newsom wants to offer people. He wants to offer them government checks and a class warfare and a free abortion. That's where Gavin Newsom comes from.
Think about our system right now. There's 40 senators and 80 assemblymen in California. People might know that. Who runs for those 40 and 80 positions? It's people who can devote their entire life to politics. It's people who are professional fundraisers. It's people who, in many situations, they really go to Sacramento thinking that they're going to change things, and they get there and they figure out that the people with money are the ones that dictate what goes on. It's got to be disheartening as well. The neighborhood legislature and my candidacy is about putting people back in charge, but it's also about opening up the political process to so many disenfranchised and disheartened people that feel like politics is way beyond them.
That's right.
I've met so many people that don't even know who their assemblyman or their senator is, and they tell me it doesn't matter, and why should they pay attention? Yeah. And my answer is that they will be made to care because their housing costs will go up, which they have. Gasoline costs, it's unaffordable in this state anymore. And a lot of the reason for that unaffordability lies at the hands of this state legislature. It's not the weather. Arizona has pretty nice weather, so does Florida. And they don't have unaffordable living. This state is the golden state. It ought to be the golden state once more. The only difference between this state and many others like Arizona, Texas, Florida, is that our political management is awful, and we are the ones that are responsible for that, Brian. We have to take responsibility and change it because the people in charge of our state government aren't going to do it on their own.
That's right. Again, we're talking to John Cox, candidate for governor. John, what's the website they should go to see more about your campaign?
Well, the key one is johncoxforgovernor.com, and they can go and sign up, and they can join 5,000 people. We have got 5,000 donors to this campaign, from $3 to $30,000 have been contributed by people. By the way, I've raised already almost $550,000 from outside people. I put $3 million in to get it started, but $550,000, and we're just getting started. I think there's a lot more people that are going to, hopefully people listening here are going to step up and help this effort, because I'm not a billionaire. I'm a small businessman. I need all the help I can get, and if we really want this to change, we're all going to have to pitch in.
John, we're going to take one more quick break. When we come back, we'll have a wrap-up segment, but I want to encourage people. You're listening to John Cox. He's the candidate for governor. He's the only pro-life candidate for governor. He's attracting both Democrats and Republicans, and it's because of the themes you have just heard. He believes in the significance of every life, and that's what we believe in the Right to Life cause. Every human life is significant, even the seemingly insignificant. And he's changing the theme for Democrats because a lot of Democrats don't want a controlling government. They don't want corrupt, kooky ideas running their government. They actually became Democrats because they believe in the little guy. So Democrats are being attracted to John Cox, and in this primary, Democrats can vote for John Cox. But more to the point, he's actually appealing on the basis of Republican principles, which, if you recall, the last leader in this nation that got elected by crossover Democrats was actually President Donald Trump. And his whole message was to assert the principles that will make America great again. And I'll be honest with you, that's what I hear in John Cox. He has basic core values and principles that you need to be aware of. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Life Matters, and I'm your host, Brian Johnston.
You're listening to Life Matters.
Life Matters is sponsored by the California ProLife Council, the state affiliate of the National Right to Life Committee. To find out more on how you can help and be involved right where you are, go to CaliforniaProLife.org. That's CaliforniaProLife.org. We'll tell you how you can get involved in your local community, how you can be effective if you want to be a pro-life speaker. We have training programs and open doors of opportunity for you to speak on the life issue. If you'd like to donate your car or a boat, you can do that at CaliforniaProLife.org. Car Easy makes it easy, and you find that on our website. We get the most of any donation program. Car Easy allows us to get the most out of your car. Maybe you're not getting the trade-in value you wanted. Maybe it's just not running the way it used to. Let your car be used for life. Go to CaliforniaProLife.org and find out what you can do to make a difference. CaliforniaProLife.org.
Be sure to subscribe to the Life Matters podcast with Brian Johnston. Go to lifematters.life to subscribe. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. You know, we're your program on life, on culture, and the very real battle of ideas. And this battle is actually for you and what you think and what your loved ones think. And if you're ignoring that aspect of life, the battle of ideas, you're going to lose. You have to sharpen yourself with what really matters, what's really true. And to be able to discern what's true, you're going to have to practice thinking things through. We're wrapping up a great interview with John Cox. He's the only pro-life candidate for governor. And as we talked about last time, he is attracting support from both sides of the aisle, and perhaps most importantly, from a larger group now in California, the decline to state voter, the independent voter who is sick and tired of both political parties. John Cox is reaching them. John, tell us as we wrap up now what folks need to know about where we're going with you.
Well, they need to know that there's a top two format in California so that anybody can vote in the primary, but they have to come out and vote. If they don't, they're giving up their rights, and that's not good. I mean, one of the things that I'm talking about in this campaign, Brian, in addition to the life issue, but the most important issue certainly is life, but we also have to make a living, and we also have to be able to feed our families and buy a house and live. California has been rendered almost unaffordable by the corruption in Sacramento. Not only that, the business climate here. I mean, the ticket for any person like me who was born in the lower levels of the economic, ladder, the ticket to getting to the upper levels is your own small business. Most Californians either have their own small business or work in one. And small business has been crushed in this state for the last dozen years or so. I mean, the regulations, the taxes, the incredible burden of the trial lawyers suing them. What we've got to do is change the equation and shift the power back to small business and to people who actually, want to feed their families and make a go of it in California. We can do this if we all pitch in to do it together, and I hope people will check me out and find out that we certainly have a plan for making this state, sustainable. I want to make one other mention, that the public sector unions and the people that have the levers of power in Sacramento are using it for their own purposes. And we have some real problems facing us in the near future, primarily related to unfunded pensions and health care for state workers. That's another area people need to know. I've been in the business world for 40 years, but I'm also a CPA, I'm a tax attorney. I've drafted defined benefit pension plans. I think I can communicate effectively to the people of this state that there have to be some changes made. We have to address these problems. They aren't going to go away on their own. Illinois, my home state, is not addressing them. That state's on the way to bankruptcy. I don't want California to also fall into bankruptcy. I want this state to be a sustainable state that can be good for our children, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I'm excited, John. I'm very excited, and I think folks need to realize John has the right values. You heard about that, the type of the program, responsibility. He's got the experience, though. I'm excited about his business experience, his CPA experience, his understanding of how the machinery of government has been abused. And that's why the California ProLife Council on the life issue, but many other people from both sides of the aisle are looking to John Cox and are very excited about his candidacy. Thank you, John. I'm sorry we have to close this off. Maybe we'll have you back again soon, but I want to thank you for being on Life Matters.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Today's program was paid for by the California ProLife Council PAC. I want to remind you that 2018 is an important election year, and you can have an impact right where you are. You impact not only the governor's race, but all the way down the ticket. Congressional, Senate in the state assembly, county supervisor races. But it goes even closer to your home, where you have a dramatic impact. City council races, and indeed, school boards. Your children can be released to Planned Parenthood without your knowledge or consent. But who decides that? It's your school board that decides it. And just a handful of votes can elect either a pro-life school board member or a pro-abortion school board member. You're the one that'll decide that. Go to CaliforniaProLife.org and get some questionnaires for your local school board candidates. You have to do that before the election. Make sure you get involved and make a difference. We want to remind you there's going to be meetings throughout the state with all the walks for life. There'll be meetings there by California Pro-Life. Make sure you search those out and attend those meetings. There's also training sessions and conferences throughout the state in the early part of the spring. Thanks so much for listening.
Do you have a question about the right to life? Call our Lifeline anytime at 800-924-2490 or visit us online at lifematters.life. Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Life Matters is a production of the California ProLife Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life. Wherever you are in the nation, you can find out more at National Right to Life. You can find vital pro-life information and also find the access to your state and local Right to Life affiliate. Get informed and get involved.